Good afternoon. I think we're ready to start our study session. Summer, if you'll call roll, we'll start.
Commissioner Patterson?
Here.
Commissioner Norwood?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Commissioner Stallings?
Here.
Commissioner Orr?
Here.
And Mayor Mason.
Here.
All present.
Item number 2, at the Commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to discuss? No? Frank, you look like you have a question on your face. No?
I have many questions. I'm still learning my bearings here, so many questions.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on then to item 3.1, update on the I-35 and Highway 412 lighting project.
Yes, I can give you a quick update on that. The lighting project has been a concept for several years, I will say. The lighting project was thought at one time to be a good project for the city in promoting that the city's here. And one of the things that I probably drove that was lighting projects near the Stillwater exit. Also, it's in Blackwell now, and I think it's at Tonkawa. So I know at one point I was asked about it, and I said, yeah, it'd be a good thing. Representative Caldwell really worked it. He's the one that worked it with Tim Gatz, who's the director of ODOT. And after a period of what felt probably was a few years, it's come to fruition to the point that ODOT has found the funding to do the project. It's an ODOT project, but they want the city to take on the maintenance, changing the light bulbs of that thing and things like that in the future. Not unlike other ODOT projects here in town. For instance, we're responsible for mowing, for instance, around in-town highways. In any event, that project's at about 60% completion. I know that myself and Michael Williams sat in on a remote call about that with the engineers working on it. I believe they said that they'll be to 100%, and they think it'll be out to bid and started by September. It's a $2.6 million project, whole bunch of lighting, lights up that whole interchange, and we think it's a good idea, so I wanted to mention that to you. The city will be responsible for paying the electric bill. The estimate that we have on the electric bill is about $4,000 a year. That's based on, I think, what the Blackwell bill. It's through the K Electric. And then we'll also have to, when bulbs go out, we'll have to fix those. Michael Williams will contract with somebody at some point. Actually, he won't even contract, is what he's told me. When the issue comes up, he'll hire somebody to do it, just like he has to do in certain situations for lighting here in town. So the purpose of putting it on the agenda was to tell you about it. I think it's a good project and try to answer your questions and/or concerns.
Do you have a plat or anything that shows where the lights are, or?
I did. I don't know, I don't, but they did show us 60% plans. I did reach out about a week ago and see if I could get a copy of them, and I haven't been able to get a copy of them yet. So
Is there signage also, or is it just lighting?
it's just lighting at this point, but the thinking originally, and I know Trenton January was on the call, we had also talked about the ability to do a city wayfinding sign at some point there, and that was part of the early conversation. It was part of the current conversation that came up again, but Trenton had mentioned that it couldn't be in the right-of-way.
Sure.
And so that's something we'll have to take into account. The right-of-way, just, I don't know what the distance is, but you can think of it as from the fence line on one side of the road to the other side. So that is a possibility. Any wayfinding sign would have to be at our expense.
Okay.
And those signs, many years ago, were approximately, I'm going to say approximately $20,000 a sign. Now, that was many years ago.
I bet they're more than that.
It would be a lot more than that probably now, but that was the thinking, that the combination of the lighting project plus a wayfinding sign would be beneficial to Enid to help market and promote ourselves and get people to realize that just 28 miles off the interstate is everything they need to live, work, and play, and grow up. So it's a great project. I did want to note, it's a $2.6 million project. That's how much stuff costs. No cost to City of Enid, other than the maintenance and the maintenance agreement. So there will be some expense, and I suppose if a light pole is hit in a vehicle accident, for instance, in the future, that would probably end up being a conversation with us about replacing that, and I think we would have a conversation at that point too, putting in the paperwork for an insurance claim at that point, much like we do now if a light pole is hit. Now, these light poles are high, whatever they call them, high loft poles, so they'll be more expensive, but I think overall, we're getting a $2.6 million lighting project that I think benefits us. Now, you could argue maybe it benefits other people. It improves safety at that intersection, too. So I think it's a great thing, and the state is moving on it. So.
Good.
So those poles are tall enough. I heard you say that we'll contract that out. We won't send a bucket truck out to try to reach it.
Yeah, I don't recall what the height is. Michael Williams already knows several companies he can use, including one in particular, and he's talked to them about that. We've asked about contracting, and they said, well, we can if we want to, but they don't need a contract. They just need to be hired. So depending, what we would do probably is get quotes following our finance procedures, and whatever it costs would drive however we would procure the service. And if we need to engage in a contract, we could at some point.
That's a dark intersection out there when you make that turn coming
It is.
from Oklahoma City around that curve. So that's a good thought. Good thought. Glad they're doing it. Any questions, comments? Anybody? All right, very good. Item 3.2, discuss a proposed increase of lease rates at the Enid Woodring Regional Airport. Keston, I'm guessing that's you.
Yes, sir, you would be correct. So, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you, as always, for taking time to be here out of your day. So, I just wanted to discuss with you all the potential for a proposed rate increase to the city hangars. So, overview, 81 city-owned hangars at the airport, 7 city-owned storage hangars, which we would not be looking at increasing rates on because we're hoping to get rid of soon. 21 land leases. I think that number just the other day went up to 22. And then this proposal would raise the rates by 1 cent per square foot per month for the city-owned hangars and 2 cents per square foot per year for the land leases. One thing I wanted to talk about, of course, is the revenue that this produces for the airport. Of course, we are an enterprise fund, as you are all well aware, for the city. So anything that we spend, any project that we do, we of course have to raise the funds to do so with. One of the main ways that we do that is through fuel sales, both jet fuel and avgas. But the other big way that we have as a revenue generating project or anything like that is through the rental of our land or through the hangars that we own. So in our budget, about $260,000 is what we make every year off the rental of all of our hangars, and about $68,000 is for the rental of the land. Of course, that $68,000 also includes some ag land, so that $68,000 is not completely just private-owned hangars. It is something that we do every 5 years as we go for sealed bids for the agricultural land that's on the airport as well. So that would be in that number. One of the reasons that we look at doing this on average about every 3 years is what we look at raising these rates is for FAA Grant Assurance 24, which is the grant assurance that states that basically the airport will maintain a fee or a rental structure that is that makes the airport as self-sustainable as possible given the conditions of the airport. So that's really the only guidance that the airport or the FAA gives airport on the rates that they charge for their land and their hangars. So next slide here is determining fair market value. If I could go back actually and change this, as the more I thought about it, I think this would probably be better to be said determining comparable rates. The FAA says the only time that we have to actually charge fair market value at the airport is when it's for non-aeronautical purposes, so storage hangars, office space out at the terminal, the restaurant, that sort of thing. That's the only time that we have to do that. Normally, on hangars, we just compare our rates to what is around in the state to make sure that we're at a place that is comparable for the market that's here in Oklahoma. And the second thing we do is we look at the CPI index every time that we raise rates here. We want to make sure that the rates that we are proposing are not above and beyond what the actual inflation has done. Because one of the main reasons that we increase these rates is because, of course, as you all are aware, things are more expensive. We maintain these hangars, so we have to pay for the maintenance on any city-owned hangar, and that gets more expensive as time goes on. So the first thing we look at is a rates and charges survey. This is put on every year. Historically, it's been, recent history, it's been by the OU Max Westheimer Airport down in Norman. Previous to that, it was done by the Stillwater Regional Airport in Stillwater. They use an intern that they have from the college every year to go out and collect data from all the airports in Oklahoma. So on this slide, and I have attached a couple of the more comparable ones. Of course, it's quite hard to read, so I've also attached it to the agenda in its entirety. I just chose about 4 airports in Oklahoma that are somewhat comparable to our airport. Of course, you'll hear this a lot if you're ever around anyone else in aviation or specifically in airport management. If you know one airport, you know one airport. It's really hard to compare what one airport does to what another airport does because the surrounding economy is different, the population that's in the city centers are different, that sort of thing. Obviously, in OKC, in the middle of OKC at Wiley Post Airport, you're going to have a much different demand and types of hangars and quantity of hangars than you are here in Enid, Oklahoma, compared to what you're going to have in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. And so these are 4, between this slide and the next slide, 4 of what I think are some of the best comparable airports here in the state that actually participated in this rates and charges survey. I attached, of course, the entire rates and charges survey to your agenda so that you could look at it in the entirety, so you didn't think I was just cherry picking to make us look as best as possible. There's about 26 airports of the 107 airports in the state of Oklahoma that participated in this. Of course, all of those who participate in the survey get a copy of the surveys, which is one of the main reasons that we participate in this, is so that we can turn around and compare ourselves, make sure that we are staying where we want to be. So I looked at Guthrie, Stillwater, OU, and I want to say Ponca City. Yeah, Ponca City is the 4 that I pulled out. And so, of course, on the land lease, it actually should say 17 cents per square foot per year on ours. I mistakenly put 15. We also have a long list of hangar types and rates that we listed compared to a lot of other airports. We have quite a diverse selection of hangars out at the airport, everything from small T hangars to larger box hangars. So in the limited space that we have provided in the survey response, to kind of fit as best as possible as we can to showcase what we have. So I think if you compare where we're at to everyone else that's listed in this survey, I would say we're probably bottom of the middle of the pack. We're not at the very bottom, we're not at the very top. Typically, when we look at our rates over the 3 years where we try to find ourselves in this survey, is towards the top of the middle, is where we think is the best place for us. We have a nice facility. We run our own FBO and provide good service with it and provide a competitive fuel price. But we also have, contract tower at our airport. We have a very long runway. And so we have a lot of these amenities that make it a little bit more expensive for us as an airport to operate compared to some of these smaller airports. But we're not at a place where I think we need to be at the top of the pack, where you would see it like a Tulsa Riverside or probably a PWA or Wiley Post Airport. Second thing we look at, of course, like I said earlier, is CPI index. So on this, on the little picture there is just CPI index for January 2022, which is when the last rate increase went into effect. $100 in 2022, comparable buying power in December of 2024 is about, you'd need $112.26 to buy what $100 did in January of 2022. So looking at our 17, 32, or 22 series hangars, those rates with the slash, we, of course, 17 series and the 32 series, we have what is called a small hangar and a large hangar in those series. Smaller hangar, of course, a little bit less square footage, so of course it pays or charges less per month than the larger one does. That's why you have two rates in a single series. So put what we currently charge per month into the CPI inflation calculator, and that is what the comparable buying value or power of that per month rental would be if we just followed the CPI index. This is what we are actually proposing for the increases in our 2017, 22s, 32s, and some corporate series hangars. So a little bit under what the CPI index would be if we actually followed just the straight CPI index. So we're looking at about a 6.6% increase if you do 1 cent per square foot per month. CPI index over the last 3 years is closer to a 12%. So 17 series, you're looking at about a $9 per month increase. 22 series, you're looking about $11 per month increase. And 32 series, you're looking at roughly a $12 per month increase. The corporate series is a little bit harder to make easy to read on a single slide because there's a wide variety of corporate series hangars at the airport. I did attach a little one-sheeter as well that breaks down all of our hangars. The old rates, the new rates that we're proposing, the total square footage of those hangars at the airport, the per month increase that those tenants would see at their hangar, and the per year increase as well. On the far right of that one sheeter, you would see the total additional revenue that the airport would realize if we did this full proposal. And then the other thing I wanted to point out that's a little bit different than what we normally do on these 3-year increases is the corporate series hangars. We have previously had some complaints when we have done these from corporate series owners. It's a wide variety of hangars that falls into this corporate series. Everything from newer box hangars that are insulated with HVAC systems and offices with running water and bathrooms to older box hangars that are uninsulated, have no running water or waste water facilities or HVAC systems in them, no manual door, or they have manual doors as opposed to electric bifold doors. So it didn't exactly make much sense to be charging the same per square foot for a hangar where you have to get out in the cold and open up the hangar door yourself by hand, and you go into a cold hangar that is uninsulated without HVAC systems, and charge the exact same per square foot that we are turning around and charging to someone with an electric bifold hangar with insulated, that's completely insulated and has an HVAC system with an office space and a bathroom and a shower. So this proposal actually breaks it out kind of into what I call older corporate hangars and newer corporate hangars. The older corporate hangars is it's about 5 hangars that have those manual sliding doors, do not have insulation, do not have HVAC systems or anything like that. And then the newer ones, which do have insulation, do have electric bifold doors, they do have HVAC systems, and they do have those office spaces and bathroom spaces. And so we would increase the newer ones, about 6 hangars, by that 1 cent per square foot per month, while keeping those older hangars at the current rate. That way we have a differentiation between the prices that we are charging and to see that there's an actual comparison in the quality of hangar that you're getting for the price that you're paying. And then finally, the other thing that we need to do, this will have to happen no matter what. Even if we do not go forward with these rate increases, this will have to go into the city code. We did just recently complete the new 401 series hangars on the south ramp, which I've been before you all and given many updates and talked about before. So these are the new south ramp series hangars. They replaced the 8 port-to-port hangars on the south ramp that were previously there when we reconstructed that first phase of the south ramp. So they're 48 by 40 conjoined box hangars, electric bifold doors, and 1,920 square feet off the top of my head per hangar, and we'd be looking at charging 24 cents per square foot per month for them. Totals $460.80 per month. The reason or the rationale behind this decision for how we come to how much to charge per square foot per month, again, because we don't get much guidance from the FAA other than to say you must charge a rental and rates that make your airport as self-sustaining as possible given the circumstances of your airport. So we kind of look at what the FAA recommends you do for private-owned hangars. A lot of airports in bigger cities, specifically like Tulsa or Oklahoma City, Dallas is an exceptional example of it. They recommend what's called reversion of hangars. We don't do that here at Woodring, and I don't think it's necessarily something that we should look at doing. I don't think there is quite the market for it. But the FAA says that the airport owns the land, and therefore the airport should eventually own everything that is on the airport. So when a private developer comes to an airport and develops at an airport, at bigger cities, they have what's called a reversion clause in their lease. It says after the end of the term of the lease, the ownership of the hangar reverts to the airport. The reason or the rationale behind this for the FAA is that they're getting essentially cheaper rent, right? They make the initial upfront investment to build the hangar and then get cheap land rent on the backside to recuperate that investment over the lifetime of the hangar. The FAA says that those reversion clauses should be between a 30 and a 40-year term. After 30 or 40 years, the ownership of the hangar should revert to the airport. It's not a requirement by the FAA, but they recommend it. I don't think that should be something done at Woodring. I don't think there's quite the market for that. We're not a Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we have quite honestly, we have quite a lot of developable land at the airport, a little over 1,000 acres, and most of that is not developed. You know, obviously in bigger cities like Dallas, where your growth of the airport is pretty much boxed in by development on all sides, it makes sense where you have a finite resource of land that you would probably, as an airport, want to revert ownership of those structures back to the airport. But back to the point of the rent on these hangars is if the rationale behind the FAA is to say that a private development on the airport sees the return of investment of that development on the airport in between 30 and 40 years, then the airport itself should also look to have returns of investment that are similar in scope. So this 24 cents per square foot per month gives a return of investment of 32 years for the construction price of these hangars. It was a $1.4 million construction price, and over 32 years, we would recuperate $1.4 million in rent as long as they are filled the entire time. Went on the low end of that 30 to 40 years because, of course, over the lifespan of these hangars, we're going to see maintenance costs. That's going to push that return of investment higher closer towards that 40-year lifetime. So a lot of information in a short amount of time. So wanted to leave some time for any questions, comments, or concerns.
I have a question. What's your occupancy rate?
100%, pretty much. I
Charge them anything you want to.
yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. There's definitely
I
something
don't
to
know
be
why
said
you're
for that.
worried so much. I mean, I just,
Yeah, no, we are 100% that we actually have a wait list of about 30 to 40 people. So there's definitely not a shortage of demand for these hangars. And so the
Build some more.
price should be, yeah, I'm working on it. I hope to come before you all with more hangars shortly, but we'll see, knock on wood.
Well, that's a good point. How do we come up with the naming 401 series for those hangars?
Yeah, so in fact, if I go back a few slides here, right here, it's hard to see. You might have to pull it up on your tablets there. I attached a picture that has all the numbers of the hangars kind of in red over their hangars. It's an interesting numbering scheme. There's not a whole lot of logic behind it initially. So back when the airport was founded, back in, I think it was mid-30s off the top of my head, they numbered the airports, or they numbered the hangars in the way they were constructed. So hangar number 1 was the first constructed hangar on the airport, number 2 was number 2, 3 was 3, so on and so forth. So you see some hangars are in areas where the numbers they make sense, they go down the line, you have 4, 5, and 6 all in a row, but you also have other areas in the hangar or at the airport where you have hangar number 1, right next, well, not hangar number 1 in this example, but you would have like the 17 series hangars next to the 22 series hangars. That was because the 17 series hangars were the 17th hangars built on the airport. There was 18, 19, 20, and 21 built in between those and the 22 series hangars, which are essentially next door to the 17 series hangars. So they jumbled all over the place. The 401 series hangars come from back about 10 to 15 years ago. It was the last time that the airport went through a master plan phasing. And during that master plan phasing of the airport, we laid out a new numbering structure for the airport that made more sense. And so it has a 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500 series hangars. And it works its way from north to south. Like it's really northwest to southeast. So the 100 series hangars, like hangar 107 and 108, which are the old joint use hangar and the new joint use hangar, they're in the northwest section of the airport. Number one hangar is always going to be towards the southwest side, and they'll work their way up towards the northeast side the higher they get. Of course, we could go back and renumber all of our hangars to match this system instead of just building them going forward, but it would take the releasing of the entire airport to do so because all of our leases are based off of hangar numbers. So to change all the hangar numbers, we would have to get everyone to come back in and sign new leases with the correct new hangar numbers. So not something that we have currently undertaken. Maybe will in the future at some point, but it's not on the cards right now.
Yes, I'm not suggesting we do that.
Yeah.
I am very proud of those 401 series. There's 8 new hangars now.
8 new hangars now,
Do you
yes.
remember how much those cost? And
1.4 million construction price for the hangars themselves, 1.6 million to do the ramp in front of
you
them.
want to remind the commission where you got the money for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So 1.4 for the hangars themselves came from a P3 grant through the Department of Commerce, managed by the, Oklahoma Financial Development Alliance. And then the south ramp in front of it, the apron in front of it, that also had to be reconstructed to build these new hangars because of the way that the drainage is designed in that area of the airport, was provided by the DSIP grant through the Office of Local Defense Community and Cooperation. So it was a 1.6 million for the concrete, 1.4 million for the hangars itself, so 3 million total grant, and it was completely paid for by those 2 grants.
So Keston, the 31 on the waiting list, or 33, whatever it was, do they already have planes? Where are they at right now if they don't have a hangar to put that in?
Yeah, so that's kind of a problem across the nation with in aviation is there's a shortage of hangars compared to aircraft. So if you talk to pretty much any airport across Oklahoma or across the nation, they all have wait lists. And so a lot of these people do have aircraft already. There are a few that are looking to buy or purchase aircraft and haven't done so yet. But the vast majority already have them, and they've moved here to Enid and want to bring their aircraft with them, but can't. So some of them store them as close as possible. Some people store them down in like Ponca City or Perry or Kingfisher or anything like that as close as possible, where they still have to drive to their plane, but it's not as far as where they used to live. Some of them, because the wait list situation is so bad across the nation, they legitimately don't. If they move from Texas and they've got a hangar already in Texas, they just leave their plane in Texas until a hangar opens up here. Then they'll go down, cancel their lease in Texas, fly their plane up here, and then store it in our hangar. So most of them are just scattered around the nation, wherever they used to live before they moved here to Enid.
Okay. You're coming with 8 more, right?
That is the hope, yes. We've already acquired the $1 million P3 grant through the Department of Commerce to build the second series, or phase 2 of the South Ramp hangars. But we do have a 40% grant that we've proposed to the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics that should hopefully go before their commission in March for their decision on whether or not they will support that. That would leave, it's a $2.5 million estimate for, they'd actually be 50 by 40 hangars on the second phase of South Ramp hangars. A little bit wider so that we can accommodate light twin aircraft, which is a large section of our wait list is light twin aircraft. So too big for our small T hangars, but kind of too small for the large corporate box hangars that we have. It doesn't make sense for them to pay $600-700 a month for a hangar that they only need probably 2/3 of. And so this would give us the ability to hangar those size of aircraft here. That would leave roughly about 20% of the project that would have to be paid for out of airport funds.
Go ahead.
Well, that's okay. You can finish.
When they rent one of these hangars and they pull that plane in, and let's say that they only need 2/3 of it, can they buddy up with someone else and put another plane in there at the same cost they're paying, or do we require them only to have their plane in there?
So we don't allow subordinate leases in ours, so because of the wait list, we don't allow people to go out and just
Because of
lease.
what?
Because of our
The
wait
wait
list.
list, okay.
So we don't want friends, we have a large group of our hangars are rented by Vance Air Force Base personnel. And unfortunately to them, when someone new moves to Vance, they have to go to Enid to go to Vance Air Force Base. A lot of times they have to go to the bottom of our wait list. It's unfortunate, but it's just how it is. And so if we don't stop them from subordinating leases, our wait list would never move because, they would become friends with someone and their friends would just let them move into their hangar when they moved out, and then we would have a constant cycle of
Right,
that happening.
okay.
We do allow people to share hangars. We have several already that do so, especially on the bigger hangars, but we don't make those partnerships or pairings with them. They're required to go out and find someone to share the hangar with them themselves. We don't want to get into the messy side of things if they don't get along with their tenant or their tenant partner. And so it is completely on the tenant themselves to find someone to share their hangar with if that's something they desire to do.
I have a question. The numbers from this proposal, is that just put together by you, or does that go through your board? And the reason I ask that is, do you anticipate any pushback from your tenants?
Yeah, so before I came before you all to propose these rate increases, I did propose them to my Aviation Advisory Board. They did recommend approval of these. Actually, I had hoped to do this much earlier, but of course, it's just me out at the airport right now. I don't have an operations manager, so I've been a little bit busier than I expected to be. And so I'm the one, at the end of the day, that comes up with what we should charge or what I think we should charge. I make that proposal to my Aviation Advisory Board, get their buy-in on it, and then come before you all for your buy-in as well. I mean, there's probably a good possibility there will be some pushback. Nobody wants to pay more money for what, they have. And I don't disagree with that necessarily. I never, when I rented a house here in town, I was never happy with the idea of having to pay more in rent. But the unfortunate thing is it's more expensive to operate the airport every year. We have increasing personnel costs, we have increasing maintenance costs, and so we are required by our grant assurances with the FAA. It is a grant requirement that we make the airport as sustainable as possible according to the environment of the airport that we're at. And so will it hurt? Yeah, maybe. The unfortunate truth is, and it sounds a little callous, and I do not mean to make it sound that way at all. I completely understand with them, but
You have people on the waiting
I've got,
list that
if you're not happy, I'm sorry to see that, and I wish you good luck finding another hangar, unfortunately.
Well, to Commissioner Stallings' point, are we raising them enough now? Or this is the first time in 3 years, right?
Yeah, we look at it about every 3
Should we
years.
come back next year? Because it is the golden era at Woodring.
It is.
And there's all kinds of improvements. So at the end of the day, I believe everybody's very happy. You're right, nobody wants to pay more, but this is also a different clientele. People that own airplanes and hangar them are in a, I would say, a comfortable economic class. So
I just knew you had some pilots with hangars out there that are on your board, so if they buy into it,
Yeah, I had.
it makes it more viable to get it out.
Yes, well, I had 100% buy-in from my board out there. And yeah, to answer the city manager's question, it's possible we could look at raising them again next year. I look at the rates and charges survey every year that it comes out. And when I think we're dropping to the point in that rates and charges survey that we're no longer a comparable rate for the state of Oklahoma, that's typically when I
I
bring
think
it
we should
forward.
consider it because I think we need to Very excited about these 8 and the next 8. These are the first ones built in 40 years
Yeah,
or something?
probably about 40
For general
years.
aviation. And so that's very exciting, and clearly we have demand.
Yeah, the demand is definitely
Costs a
there.
lot of money. What's the next 8 going to cost?
2.5 million is the estimated cost.
2.5 million, so yeah.
Yeah.
But they're larger.
Yeah, so we want to do 50 by 40s. If space and budget allows, I'd love to do 50 by 50s, but that increases the estimate to 2.8 million. And so,
Justin, what size would you rent the most of if you could go out there and have a builder start today and be done in 6 months? What size would you build?
so the majority of our wait list is those smaller aircraft, so it would be T hangars more than likely. These new ones that we're looking at building is specifically because I've had light twin aircraft that have been on my wait list for 5 years.
Okay.
Because
Don't get me in the minutia. I
Yeah.
will stay up here.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know what size you need to build. Okay. You know what they're going to cost. Okay. You know what you're going to pay, what they're paying you for. So what's the payout on it? That's really the bottom line.
Yeah.
You know, if it makes economic sense, you don't have to worry about grants. People will do it.
Yeah, I will say, unfortunately, without grants, it doesn't make economic sense. That's why you don't see, that's why there is a hangar shortage across the nation. If it made sense for a private developer to come into airports and build T hangars and lease them out, they would. I don't think there would be a shortage, but quite honestly, without these grants, they just don't, it's just not reasonable. When you're looking at, a good example is if I build new hangars and I'm looking at a 32-year return on investment for $1.4 million hangars, they're paying $460 per month for that hangar. The same size aircraft that fits in that hangar could fit in a lot of my T hangars for less than half the cost.
But you don't have any T hangars.
I don't, no, I don't, but.
That's my point. You got more people with airplanes and wanting to buy or bring airplanes than you do hangars.
Yeah, and that is
And
something.
you're not going to, back in the old days, I actually did this. I
Yes.
hung them out on the ramp, tied them down,
Yes,
any kind of weather. But you don't do that anymore because the airplanes cost $1 bazillion.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
the economics seem to make sense to me. It's a law of supply and demand.
yeah,
And you're telling me that you got a lot more people wanting hangars than you have hangars, then whether we go for grants or go to the bank or something, makes sense to build hangars. If they pay out.
absolutely. Yeah, that is something we could look at, is spending the money to just build the hangars out of pocket.
What size is the T-port or T hangars? Is that 40 by 40 or?
So the T hangars, they're called T hangars because if you look at them from above, they look like a T. So you have a wide wing section that isn't the full depth of the hangar, and then it narrows down to a skinnier section for the tail. And then often they, flip them 180 and push them together to nest, and so that they take up less space. So it's a little bit hard to just talk about what size they are. They're usually right around a wing opening of about 42 to 44 feet clearance on the wings, and then the tail depth is anywhere between 20 or 30 feet deep.
And that airplane to go in there, what does it cost? A brand new one.
It can be anywhere from $150,000 to well over $1 million if you get a Cirrus. Yeah,
Closer to the high range.
yeah.
than the low.
There are a lot of times closer to the high range.
So you don't want to leave them outside.
No, it's just like people with their cars, except on a grander scale.
My only point is, you're doing a great job out there. You really are. But there's low-hanging fruit here for the city.
Absolutely.
To build hangars.
Absolutely, I wouldn't disagree.
Well, I think we'll get these next 8 built, and then we'll look very excited because, again, nothing's been done. Well, new hangars for general aviation has been extremely lacking, so.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we'll look and see what we can do because it's great. You got space to build more, right, if we've
Yeah.
money?
We just opened up the completion of a taxiway. We just opened up some new hangar development. We'll continue to build taxiways into that area. That'll eventually open up about 70 acres for development.
Keston, the new ones that you're talking about, this 2.5 million right now, is there going to have to be any additional taxis or ramps built to those right now, or is that already in place?
So that's already in place. Most of the infrastructure is already there. So if you look, I think, right, so this is an older picture, but those hangars right there on the front, that's the south ramp. We just reconstructed that ramp. And then, of course, those hangars. The hangars right behind them is the Phase 2 area. And so those are what are called porta-port hangars. They're portable hangars that back in, I think it was the 80s, during the last big oil boom, there was a period of time where there was, like Commissioner Stallings was saying, planes just tied down on the ramp. Rain, snow, hail, everything. They were outside. And so the airport director at that time had the ability to buy what were called porta-port hangars, portable hangars. They literally, if you go out and look at them, they have a trailer hitch on the front. They're set in such a way that you can throw tires on them. They collapse in on itself, and you can tow them with a truck. He took those, put a whole bunch of them on the south ramp of the airport, and bolted them into the concrete. The downside is the concrete was already there, and so it wasn't designed with hangars in mind. So the reason we had to reconstruct that $1.6 million ramp in front of those first series of south ramp hangars was because the drainage ditch for that row of hangars is right behind those hangars.
Wouldn't drain, right?
And so the water would hit this 70,000 square foot ramp and rush straight towards the hangars and flood the hangars.
It's only when it rained, though.
Yeah, only when it rains. Yes, exactly. But, if you've got a $500,000 plane, you don't necessarily want it sitting in 2 inches of water for days at a time while you wait for your hangar to dry out. And so we have the same problem with that second phase of South Ramp hangars. And so we will tear out and replace these 8 hangars right there, and then on the back side are actually non-aeronautical use storage hangars. Reason being is because this taxiway that they access them, they turn here, there's not the FAA required taxi lane object-free area between this hangar and this hangar. So you can't taxi your aircraft between those 2 hangars under its own power. And so if you want to move a hangar or move an aircraft between those 2 hangars, you have to physically push your plane in and out of there. So they're not currently set up to have aircraft stored in them. We're not really in the market for non-aeronautical use storage hangars, so it doesn't make sense for us to have them in the first place. And so this project will tear out those 7 storage hangars as well. We will redesign, so part of that $2.5 million is to reconstruct a section of this pavement as well to accommodate the actual drainage of having hangars placed on this back edge of the pavement there. And so
that'll give more space in between those hangars.
yes, and that's why they're currently set up for 40 feet deep. It'll depend on the taxi lane object-free area between the face of this hangar and how far out we can go with those new hangars on whether or not we can go 50 deep or not.
You've thought about this more than once, haven't you?
Once or twice at least, yes.
Tell them again what you're living your dream, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
What was your dream from when you were a little kid?
I always wanted to be an airport director, so here I am. Yeah, I've grew up around airports. I grew up at Tulsa International Airport behind the counter. My dad was a station manager for United Airlines, so I was always behind the counter in the baggage area, the crew lounges, all that sort of stuff. Of course, pre-9/11 days when you could do that type of thing. And so I've always been around airports, and I plan to stay at an airport.
We're lucky to have you.
No, glad
Absolutely.
to be
You do a
here.
great
Yeah,
job out there.
absolutely.
We do appreciate it. Yes, sir?
Quick thing, a tribute to the success of your fuel sales out of Woodring. A buddy of mine's the city commissioner at Fairview. And he was talking about one of the birds under their saddle out that way is people will come into the Fairview Airport and get just enough fuel
Get
to
to
come
eat.
here and fill up. So I put my hand on his shoulder and said, "You're welcome."
Yes, yes. That's one of the perks of running the FBO by the city itself is we're able to offer a competitive fuel price. A lot of other airports don't operate their own FBO. They're operated by a third-party independent contractor. And the way that the airport generates revenue off of those fuel sales is what's called a fuel flowage fee. And so basically, for every gallon of gas that runs through the airport itself tacks on a price to that fuel so that they can receive a portion of that revenue. Since we operate the FBO and we receive the profits of the revenue generated by those fuel sales, we don't have to tack on that flowage fee. We just see those profits naturally from the sale of the fuel through the FBO.
Keston, have you ever done any kind of a study on additional revenue streams that, I mean, there's got to be other airports out there that have figured out a way to make another 100K a year or X amount, I don't know what that is.
So we always are on the lookout for new ways to generate revenue. If you'll remember, a couple of years ago, came before you with a proposal to start charging ramp fees at the airport. So something that we previously hadn't done at the airport was for like charter aircraft that were coming into the airport. They were coming in specifically to drop off or pick up passengers here at the airport. A lot of times they would tanker in their fuel. So they wouldn't purchase fuel from us. They would land at our airport, they would use our facilities, sometimes they would use our crew cars, and they would pick up passengers or drop them off. And then they would turn around and leave without purchasing fuel. We would still have to go out and marshal them in, put chocks on their plane, that sort of thing. So we started, came before you all a couple of years ago to get approval to start charging ramp fees. So basically that if we have those charter planes that come in, don't purchase fuel from us, the minimum is right now 70 gallons of gas, they have to pay $100 to use our facilities. Now that's only for aircraft that weigh over 5,000 pounds gross empty weight. So it doesn't kill the general aviation market where people are coming in and they're small 172 and eating at our restaurant or coming into town to see family, that sort of thing. So it's not targeted at that market. It's targeted at those charter service travelers that are coming in specifically to Woodring to do business or to do something here in town. We're not scaring them off by charging this ramp fee because they're coming here anyways. So they'd be here whether we charged it or not.
Okay.
One quick question for you. Keston, do you foresee any civilian flights? Because at one time I have flown out of Denver into Enid and into Dallas also. So
Yeah.
is that a possibility?
I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I would honestly say improbable. When we last did commercial flights here at the airport, they were subsidized by the Essential Air Service through the government. And so last I looked at the enplanements, so anytime people got on planes here at Woodring to fly commercially, we did about 1,000 per year, so about 3 people per day. The environment of commercial aviation has changed to the fact that they really have to operate at a minimum of a 70% capacity on their aircraft, and about the smallest aircraft that they'll operate is a 30-seater. And so you're looking at, a minimum of like 21 to 23 seats that you're going to need to fill every day. And these small airlines, they don't come in to communities without assurances that they're going to make it. So a good example is Stillwater. They brought in their commercial airline, right, and have done actually tremendously well with it. But the city and the university have a fund set aside to guarantee that operator will get a 70% capacity on their airport or on their airplane. Now, as far as I'm aware, I don't know. I don't have the behind-the-scene details, but from what I've heard, they really haven't had to make that assurance. They haven't had to dip out of that fund very often. But that is the only way that communities can get airlines to come into airports anymore, because commercial airlines operate on a pretty razor-thin margin, actually. Roughly a good year was probably a 2% profit, and that's a very good year, probably.
How much, a 2?
About a 2% profit. That's what I remember from my college days. It was a good year for commercial airlines was a 2% profit. The joke always was that we heard was the best way to become a millionaire was to be a billionaire and buy an airlines. And so they just don't make a ton of money. If you think of it another way too, like when I look to go travel somewhere, I'm sure the airlines would love to offer a, a nice prestigious luxury travel experience for you, but the average customer is not willing to pay that. I mean, I'm the same way. When I look to travel somewhere, I look for the cheapest way to get there, right? And so those airlines have to offer the cheapest product that they can and still pull a profit nowadays. It's gone are the days of the golden age of aviation where you dressed in suits and ties to get on your airlines, right? And so they're not looking to expand unless they have insurances that they're going to meet that demand, or there's going to be money set aside to compensate them for the lack of that demand.
Thank you.
I think the only way you will see a commercial aviation come to Woodring is if there's a change where either Essential Air Service comes back, or maybe through the electrification or like automation of airlines. But I think that's way off and probably unrealistic in the near future.
Other questions? Keston, thank you. Thank you for what you do out there.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
All right. Item 3.3, discussion of the dilapidation and demolition process. I'll get it out in a second. So,
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Just going to kind of talk about our dilapidation process, follow steps with the property maintenance, how they kind of work, coincide, and how they're the same process but can be separate. So when dealing with different structures that are dilapidated state, we have a few approaches to take. Since we don't have any guidance on the aesthetic pleasantries of a property, we have to consider other aspects on how to decide to maintain a structure. The process would look something along the lines of opening a property maintenance case that either leads to rehabilitation of the structure, dilapidation, which then leads to the demolition of that structure. On this, the dilapidations are defined. These are pulled from the state statutes also. They are our ordinance. In the underlined point, you can see where it talks about health, safety, and the welfare. So that's the big thing that we're looking at when we're looking at a dilapidated building. So when they come to before me, I have to make sure that, is it a health hazard? Is it a safety hazard? And what's good for the general welfare? So the standard procedure, this is a standard procedure once we have found a structure that is dilapidated. This is excluding the minimum housing. I just want to make sure that it's two separate processes that do work conjoined here. When we're doing our process and looking at the 2-week process, the initial investigation, from the initial investigation of finding a place that is dilapidated to sending out the notice, it usually takes about 2 weeks. So the owner receives the notice saying, hey, in 20 days, you're going to have a hearing about your property being dilapidated. Okay? They come before us, and if they show up, they say, yep, it's dilapidated. I wish they did. Usually that's not the case. It's usually, this is my family's home. Please, let's have 30 more days. Well, why do we need 30 days? What are we going to accomplish in that? That's extenuating circumstances. Let's just say for sake of these procedures, we declare it dilapidated at that point. We have to wait 10 days for the appealment. They can appeal to you guys so you hear it also. And then we go into a bid process. It takes about 3 weeks to get the bids back, get the contract signed, and then that contract is good for 30 days. So that's about a 3 to 6 month timeline from when we start the case to when the structure is actually removed, barring nothing else strange happens. Let me catch up here. I've gone off notes. Sorry, Tiffany. So once this is the initiation process of, let's just say, fire, right? We go through, either the inspector observes a violation or a fire structure is reported to the inspector. This is our property inspectors. They analyze the extent of the damage. They will note the date of the fire. The fire department does work with us and will send us fire reports when we get them. They will follow up the inspection of the required days. If the fire damage creates an immediate safety hazard and welfare concern, an expedited process begins. This is where we can work through that 3 to 6 months quicker. Using tact and understanding, because they just went through a fire, and knowing that insurance may be a factor, in about 2 weeks, we will send a letter letting them know to contact us and keep us aware of the process and where they are at. And then we're collecting in the information in that time, such as on here you can see the property owner, is it vacant, is it occupying, are taxes paid, current, and are there any violations? The notice of violation. Once the information on the property has been collected and violations have been determined, the inspector proceeds with creating notices that are physically posted to the property. This is where you'll see the signs or taped to the door. Correct, right? Yes. Okay. The notice is also mailed to the property owner and any subsidiaries. These subsidiaries can be lien holders or mortgage holders. So this is anybody that has interest in the property. And it's letting them know if you don't bring it into compliance, it's got to come down. This is where we get in some interesting conversations. If the bones are good of the building, we don't want to tear it down. We've got good houses, let's fix this up. Are they going to? I don't know. I've heard enough stories that sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
Well, the commission has heard
Sir?
at least a couple instances where the person has appealed it to. Some of you may remember those. I don't know if you were on when we had one, but some of you have been.
Exactly, and some of those we end up tearing down.
Yes.
Fortunately, this is a good picture here. The foundation looks horrible, windows knocked out. There's a lot of problems with this house. Question is, can it be fixed up? In my opinion, no. It would take a lot of passion and a lot of money. And they need to be, if someone's going to repair this, they're going to need to provide me some information. This is where property maintenance can keep a dilapidation at bay. So this house, for instance, looks like it's the exterior structure. It needs paint. It needs a couple of windows fixed. This is where we can send letters saying, hey, you need to fix this stuff so your house doesn't get into a dilapidation state and we have to work a dilapidated case. Granted, this one you see there might be a little roof hole here that might be able to be fixed. This one's a little bit more property maintenance wise. What happens when we don't meet those time frames? Oh, I'm so sorry, we spent all the money on the inside. Well, your exterior still looks horrible and it's causing problems for your entire neighborhood. So this is where we have to move forward with dilapidation. Unfortunately, they've spent money on it, but it doesn't fix anything. We try to be reasonable in these timeframes. We don't want somebody going out in the middle of winter when it's freezing, painting. We're reasonable. We can be talked to. We can be understanding. But at some point, we have to remove it. Dilapidation is the final measure, really. It's very common for us as the city of Enid to find properties in a dilapidated state and follow the dilapidation due process and demolish. Sometimes we run into issues, sometimes we don't. Here we are. We're finally tearing a house down. Horrible. We've taken somebody's house. Not really. We're improving the neighborhood is really what, if we have gotten to the point of demolition, we are looking at improving the neighborhood. Once it is declared dilapidation, when we were going through the timeline, it's the little hearing. It is our city ordinance gives the code official the power to declare it dilapidated. So once I declare it dilapidated, they have that 10-day appeal process. Then we go through the bid process. We get requests, select a contractor, the contract sign. After that, we're looking at disconnecting services, doing pre-demo photos, demo permits, and then post-infrastructure is done. This is where we get after that, we get the bill for the work. We receive the invoice, and we pay the contractor. Then the property owner is invoiced. This is where it gets, how do we recoup our cost? Right? We don't want to just be doing this stuff for free. We have to make sure that we are using our tax dollars smartly. Once the structure is declared dilapidated by the code official, the property is posted and a lien is sent to the county clerk. This is to notify any potential buyer and interested parties that the code official has declared the property dilapidated and an incurment of debt. Once the structure is removed and an invoice is received by the contractor, a cost statement is sent to the city clerks. Payment can be made within 6 months before it is then certified with the county. So they have 6 months after we demo the house to pay the city before we put a lien on the property. That was a very quick, very brief overview of a very in-depth process. I'm sure there are questions.
And concerns.
Who wants to go first?
I do.
All right.
Sir.
You go ahead, Cheryl. You have anything?
I do, but I'll-
Go ahead. No? Go ahead. I can-
Well, how often does this happen?
So in the last year, we have run 5 dilapidation cases. So we usually do 5 to 6 towards the end of the year. When high grass and weeds, everything is done, that's where we focus on our demolition. In the past year, we have done 10 houses. So that kind of tells you where we're at on this.
I mean, it seems heartbreaking. We tear their house down and then we send them a bill. And it seems cruel, but I also understand if we didn't do that, that if somebody did need their house torn down, they'd just wait for you to do it and then they get it done for free. So it's just a tough situation. I know that you guys are professional enough that you do everything you can to go a different direction, and so it's just a tough situation. So
I would
think
like to
that
say,
was-
out of those 5 houses, I think they were probably all vacant houses, weren't they?
Correct.
Because typically that's
Usually-
what we tear down. So while it is still what you said, important to people, and I remember the guy that you remember that was in here, that had inherited the house, but it hadn't gone through probate and whatever, and it was dilapidated and issues. So it's less heart-wrenching. It's not like we go, in fact, you physically can't tear down a house while people are living in it. Now, you can go through the process, yes, and I'm sure evict them. We haven't got into that because we don't need to. We have a supply of vacant houses and burned out houses that we can work. So it's less traumatic from that perspective, and I thought we would point that out.
Thank you.
And is there businesses that you've had to do this with?
We have not torn any businesses down or commercial property since I've been here. We have worked dilapidation cases, and they get enough done to where it's no longer a safety hazard or a health hazard. It's fit for human habitation is the verbiage that's used. But we are still working with those on a minimum housing stance for them to be a asset to the city.
Well, I know there's a particular property that will go unnamed, but the roof is falling in, and you can see through the window upstairs that the roof is falling in.
I can say we're working that issue.
Okay.
Scott Morris, I think I know what you're talking about. And we are stepping up the efforts there. Certainly, we also balance, because from time to time we hear we need to be business friendly, so but I feel like we've been extremely business friendly, so I think what you're talking about's been worked. But they're also difficult issues, so as you know.
I'm done.
You done? Okay. There are a couple of properties that I brought to Gerald's attention. How are we doing on those?
Without going into too much depth, I believe the properties that you are talking about, we have 1 minimum housing and 2 dilapidation cases open on them. So we are working on those.
Here's the issue. If he decides it's dilapidated, there is an appeal process, and the appeal process goes to you all. So, it's best not to get too involved in them, because then you can't be part of the appeal process. And so part of it doesn't work. If you're pushing the department to do it, and then you're the appeal, I mean, that's a conflict. So we have to kind of be careful so that we keep the ability to have an appeal, that somebody hasn't heard everything about it already and made up their mind before the person gets in. It's due process.
We'll make sure that citizens in that area that complain to me as their councilman, their representative, they can speak.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they can talk. We'll make sure that takes place. The big thing is, the issue is, they're unlivable. It's dangerous to the community. You have increase in rodents and disease. It looks terrible, it's horrible, and it devalues the property around it. And what we're trying to do in the city of Enid is to beautify our city and make sure that we are able to accommodate our citizens with affordable, attainable, beautiful housing. Eyesores don't help. When you go to the bank and try to get a loan and they do some comps in the area, it's a hindrance. So we need to get it fixed. But I know how to talk to people, and we'll take care of it. But I thank you, Gerald, for making this available to the public so that they can see it. Sometimes you have to give people a little nudge, but I won't be the one doing that, Carol. I'll make sure I do what I need to have done, so I appreciate it.
Other questions? I've got a couple, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you need us to do to modify ordinances to help you?
Because most of the stuff we have is straight from the state statute, I don't believe any modifications. I haven't looked into it, but I don't believe anything in the ordinance.
I know like on electrical codes, we have to follow certain rules, but a community can have more stringent code on top of that. Is there anything that would help you on top of the state code? And here's where I'm going with that while you think about it. And I'm just going to piggyback on what Commissioner Norwood was talking about. We paid a lot of money not too long ago for a housing study to figure out how to build some affordable housing here in town. And one of the recommendations was we have got to get rid of some of these units that are around town that are driving down the cost, the value in that area, and driving down those comps, just like the commissioner was saying. And when I say we've been sitting on our hands, I mean us, not y'all. We need to figure this out. I've been talking to some of the other mayors around the state, and they are ramping up hard and saying, enough is enough, and I agree with the fact that it's heartbreaking to do that, but you know what? We represent the people that live on both sides of that house too. And I know that the unit that we were all part of here not too long ago and gave extra time when every one of us knew nothing was going to happen in that extra time, there were people living in there with no heat or air. We're talking about homeless people that were starting fires at night, and there were kids living at the next unit over. So where's our responsibility on this thing also? So if there are additional things that we can do, and I've mentioned to Gerald that 2025, if we're truly going to figure out how to get affordable housing in Enid, that's step one, is start clearing some of these units out. And I think when we have them brought up here and there's these heartbreaking stories, which we've all heard them, dude, it's been sitting there for 10 years and you didn't work on it. I mean, why would I think you're going to in the next 3 months? Right? So that being said, if there's something that we can do to stiffen that up and give y'all more authority or ability to make that work, I would hope that we can come together as this group and do that. The other thing I wanted to ask about, you said that from the time you tear it down, you wait 6 months before you put the lien on it.
Correct.
What if they sell it within the 6 months?
So the property, it's tied to the property because the structure is gone.
I
So-
understand.
So it's that property lien on the tax rolls.
But they could sell the vacant lot.
We certify the cost, Summer, how do
So
you?
the lien is actually filed immediately after the code official declares it dilapidated. The lien is filed on the property immediately. The cost statement is actually filed 6 months later after the bill goes out. The cost statement is what's added to the tax rolls. That's the 6-month waiting period.
So it wouldn't be able to be sold without us getting paid?
Correct.
Right? Okay. And then my last thought is, and I know I'm going to put you on the spot, but how many units do you think there are right now in Enid that would fit this category of dilapidated?
I'm putting together a spreadsheet to kind of get that matrix going. I mean, we might have 20 that would easily be off the top,
Okay.
but that's a quick guesstimate.
Okay, and I understand. It's not 150, or it's not, I mean,
No,
it's
sir.
in that 20, 25 range,
Yeah.
something like that. I would like to see that list brought to this, I mean, whatever action you take on your side.
Correct.
So we can get appeals started and get that process started.
Okay.
I just think that's something, if we don't fix it, it's never going to get fixed.
Agreed.
Right? So I would encourage you to do that.
Yes, sir.
And one other thing, I knew there was something else I had. What about the houses that, they're not dilapidated so much, but they have so much stuff around them, to include automobiles, washing machines, hair dryers, I mean, you name it. I drove by, I got called on one the other day, and I drove by and looked at it. Well, I won't even tell you what I said, but,
I fully understand.
You're reading my mind.
Yeah.
Next point. I wanted to
Open
make,
storage
so-
is what it falls under.
Okay.
I can give you excuses. What I would like to say is I will be doing better.
that what?
I, myself, and my team will be doing better.
Let me jump in there.
Go ahead.
We do a lot, and so our focus is based on the desire of the council is going to be more on demos. We've got a lot of things code balances with 10 people, and I think you're doing a fantastic job. Don't stand there and apologize for it. You have nothing to apologize for.
I agree.
But we're going to have a two-pronged approach, and we've already had a joint conversation about this. So I will answer for you what the council can do. Give us a little bit of time to finish this list. We're going to start with the burned-out houses because those are an irritation to everybody, and we have, Chief, how many we have? A lot. We probably have 20 of those probably sitting around. And then anybody that wants to report one, they can. They need to understand we've got to be fair and follow the rules. And ultimately, ultimately, you guys will be the judge if they appeal, as Carol said, but you're the hearing officer. Some will meet that, like on the list of 3 that you had turned into us. 2 of them, I think, do meet that from what you've told me. 1 of them may not. And so I think we're going to have a two-pronged approach that's going to need more funding directly to pay for these, because when we pay for them, roughly they're going to be, what's the average cost? 5,000?
4 to 5, yeah.
5,000 a house. To be honest, we rarely will get money back because the property's worthless to begin with. When we tear it down, the value actually might go up. It's a lot, but it's only going to sell for $500,000, and the lien on it's going to be a lot. So depends on where it's at in town. So our focus, I believe, is twofold unless you tell us something different. Demolition. And so we'll have to step up the budget for what we do. We did about 5 or something. Now, that's not counting the special project that we have. We've knocked down, I don't know how many you've knocked down on Randolph and James.
We've got
but
about 10 demos that we've done
the
this
second
year.
piece of that is we probably need to, there is no more affordable housing, probably, or potential than some of these if they can be salvaged before they get too far along. The problem is owners either don't have the money or say they don't have the money. So we need to figure out the mechanism to help them with that. I'm not suggesting the city does it directly, but the city would have to provide funding to somebody who could do that. So you call it minimum housing. I call it renovation. So we will do that. I don't know that 25, if Lawton's doing 25, that's a lot. I've been to Lawton a bit, and Mayor Booker does have more derelict housing, I think, than we do. But we have plenty, and I think it's probably more than 20, I think, probably when we compile the list. So we'll bring that back probably at budget time, which is very soon, because we'll need more money. But also, I think some of you are on that funding committee with CDBG. We get $450,000 a year from the federal government. Some of that should go to support, if housing's our priority, set aside some for demolition and set aside some. You already do for CDSA, I think. Scott, you could probably speak to what we're doing. I think we'll probably bring some proposals to that group who then their recommendations we'll bring to you. So that's our approach and what we're doing. I feel like our staffing is good. I think our focus is going to shift a little more, more to demolition at the same time while we're trying to bring up standards. I know one of the things that the team, and I'm helping the team with, we follow our processes, we bring people to municipal court. The judge can't really do anything. If he assigns a fine, they can't pay the fine. We're going to have to take more active approach with abatement, and we're doing that now. You saw it with the pot farm.
Good.
Yeah, if we waited around for a judge and fines to solve that, we'd still be looking at it. So that's what I think. That's not going to solve everything, but it's going to help, and I think it's going to accomplish what you're talking about, and I think what you're talking about, maybe what the whole commission desires.
What happened to the program?
Go ahead. No, go
What happened to the program we used to have, and I think it was called Christmas in July, where volunteer groups got together and they went to houses where maybe elderly people lived or handicapped people, and we helped paint houses and fix up houses before they got to that dilapidated stage. I don't remember
I
who
don't know
used
that
to
the
run
city
that.
ever led that program. Carol may know because she's been around longer than I have. Other organizations may have had that program. I know my church group has done that, and I think it's admirable, but at the end of the day, that's not going to solve this issue. In my opinion, it will help.
But it will keep maybe some houses from becoming dilapidated.
This is probably a good platform to say if there are organizations that would like to help people, please reach out to me so we can get that on the list and we can get the people in contact.
And where I think it's easier for volunteers is if you've got the situation where it's just full of, the front yard, the backyard are full of junk. That's more something that, just a person with a pickup truck and, some help from friends, they can, if the person is willing. Now, we've gone out and it can get really, they think that it's wonderful and it's junk. But that is probably easier than remodeling a house. It's easier to just get it to where you could drive up the driveway instead of having it full. That's more doable for volunteer groups, I think.
Sure, but I've been involved in those groups. We painted. We redid porches and things like that, so.
Yeah.
It's just been
Well, I think there are
several
groups
years.
out there that want, if they'll take that on, more power to them. But I don't think that's something the city needs to be out there doing.
Oh, I
because
agree.
Then we
I'm
get out
just-
there and we spend one Saturday and we got half of it painted, and we're not going to show up again till next year.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? So,
Definitely not during football season.
no, not on a Saturday. Well, we appreciate what you're doing, really do. I would like to see a focus, though, on these houses that are burnt out, dilapidated. We've just got to start making some inroads on that. And then on the next one, if we need to figure out how to take care of some of these that, they're an eyesore.
Right.
Just an absolute eyesore, and, we can go on and on and on about that. But you're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Your whole team is, so
was
thank you
gonna
so
say my team
much.
is.
And any other questions on this?
No, I just want to make a comment real quick, Mayor. I really do believe that the rental rehab, if we brought that back, that would really help a lot of the problems. Because when Ben Painter had ran that through the city of Enid, it was a great program. And my father himself, he did like 15 houses in 3 years and really made a difference. and it allow him to be able to teach young men and women a skill set to be able to take care of themselves and learn how to work properly and safely. So I think if we can come together and make that happen again, that would be a great venue. And it would also, I believe, increase the amount of money that we could get in federal dollars from CDBG, because we can apply for that. Because we don't have it, we can't apply for those funds, but if we bring that program back, we can get that funding as well. And maybe that's something we can talk about when we go to DC next month.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner? No? All right, with that being said, it's 6:21. I'm going to adjourn. We will start back at 6:30.